We can see, I think we can see it well enough. Yeah. Oh, can you actually tilt the TV a little? Oh, if you could do that, that would be great. Yeah.
Hello. Hello. Hello, hello. Hello.
That's good.
Are we down to 4? Yeah.
Testing, testing. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I bid you welcome to this mandated United Nations Environment Assembly associated event, Airborne Risks, Grounded Responses, a workshop on sand and dust storms. My name is Nick Middleton. I'm a geographer based at the University of Oxford, and I have researched into sand and dust storms throughout my academic career, which is nearly 40 years now. I'd like to begin by extending a special welcome to our two distinguished guest speakers who will be opening this session. And we're very fortunate to have with us this afternoon Inga Anderson, Executive Director of UNEP, and Her Excellency Sheena Ansari, who is Vice President of the Islamic Republic of Iran and Head of the Department of Environment. But before turning over to our distinguished speakers to give their opening remarks, I'd just like to recognise a special guest in the audience. We're also joined today by His Excellency Subutai Yüksel, Ambassador and Permanent Representative of Turkey to the United Nations offices at Nairobi. This event was requested by Member States in Resolution 7 on sand and dust storms at UNES 6, and I quote, "to explore possible gaps and areas for improvement in order to address sand and dust storms and their adverse effects at the regional and sub-regional level." To begin with, I'd like to invite Inga Anderson, Executive Director of UNEP, for her opening remarks.
Thank you very much and good afternoon. Let me begin by saying that I'm so pleased that we're doing this event. This is an absolutely critical conversation whose the time of which has come, I think is the right English way to say it. When I was a lot younger, a woman based in Sudan, I experienced my first real dust storm. I was working there, we are in the 80s, and these were different times. Life was pretty basic. I was living in a village, and this wall came. Suddenly the sun turned orange, and then it was night, yet it was day. And this wall moved closer and closer and soon engulfed everything and everybody. It was in your hair, your nose, your eyes. And that was my first haboob, as they call it in Arabic. My glasses got sandblasted. I couldn't actually look out of them. And so the reality is that this phenomenon is one that impacts us all. Let me start by welcoming Dr. Sheena Ansari. It's a pleasure to be on the opening panel with you and to thank our Iranian colleagues for standing up this event and for sponsoring a resolution on this critical issue at the last UNEP. Because sand and dust storms are an escalating problem, we're seeing greater frequency and greater intensity of this phenomenon. And it is impacting humanity. We believe that around 3.8 billion people breathe air with dust levels above the WHO standards that are considered safe for humans. And from an environmental perspective, obviously, during my 8 years in that beautiful country, Sudan, I saw what a real heavy sand and dust storm can do. It's like sandpaper erasing nature. It just simply erases. It can ruin the biota, the biomass that is growing, and accelerate soil erosion, degrade natural habitats, damage vegetation cover, and therefore undermine biodiversity that is often fragile in a highly arid setting. And of course, these dust particles can transport pollutants and pathogens across vast distances, affecting marine and terrestrial ecosystems, and even altering climate patterns through interaction with the atmospheric processes. And of course, the storms worsen pollution, impair visibility, I can tell you that firsthand, and obviously in your lungs and everywhere else, increasing health risks. But at the same time, of course, we have seen sand and dust storms from the beginning of time. The conversation we need to have now is about what's happening with the frequency and the intensity of these storms. Now, our goal can't be to eliminate all of these storms, but we have to talk about what is and how we can best manage the impacts on humans and how we can increase those drivers that are anthropogenic, that are made by us, human beings. We have to also consider the transboundary nature of these, because maybe I am the origin of them, but they may very well affect my neighbors thousands of miles away. And so we have to think about this in a transboundary manner as we work to eliminate climate change, as we work towards a stable climate, as we work towards biodiversity, healthy ecosystems, as we work to end desertification. And so that becomes very critical. And sand and dust storms are emblematic of the triple planetary crisis. And so to address this, we really need to have a total conversation amongst member states. And that is why I was very happy with the resolution at the past UNEP. But we are seeing greater awareness on this phenomenon. And it's no exaggeration to say, essentially, that sand and dust storms affect nearly every nation in the world. It's about 3 years ago, my brother said, I was here. He was in my country, Denmark, and he sent me a photo of sand that was all over the car. And he said, this is from Sahara. The reality being that somehow winds had carried, and we don't know that in the high north, I can assure you, but these are the phenomena that are changing. And so that's why the attention to this issue is very important. Now, the UN has declared the decade 2025 to 2034, the decade of action for combating sand and dust storms, and thereby recognizing the scale of this challenge. At UNEP, I want to assure you that within our meager resources, we continue to do the best that we can in this context. Yes, because the real solution here lies on dealing with climate change. Yes, because the real solution here lies with dealing with nature and land degradation and therefore biodiversity. And yes, because the real solution therefore lies by stewardship under the Sustainable Development Goals. But when we do so, it becomes absolutely critical that we work together. We have featured UNEP's work on this space across multiple regions. We were instrumental, of course, in establishing the commitment back in 2019. And today, when we look at our actions and we see the kind of air quality assessment that we recently completed for Termez in Uzbekistan to support the regional master plan for West Asia, that's an important area where hopefully this will develop tracking tools, scientific assessments, as well as policy guidance. And these efforts address sand and dust storms and related challenges, as I mentioned, land degradation, climate change, desertification, and drought through a holistic approach. But I want to emphasize that it is by working together, reaching across boundaries, reaching across borders, that we can really deal with this. Dealing with climate change, decarbonizing our economies, ensuring, therefore, that the temperature rise does not increase, whereby sand and dust storms, and we will hear from our World Meteorological Organization colleagues about how these storms can carry. But also, of course, by dealing with land restoration, improving soil health, boost biodiversity, and thereby support livelihoods. So I think this is a time for a call to action on this important area. We share experiences, we share expertise, we exchange what we know, and we learn from one another so that we can tackle this. And at the same time, of course, we hope that we, UNEP, will learn about how we can serve member states better. And I very much encourage that in this conversation, we will think boldly, beyond the norm, beyond what we have already done? What can we deliver jointly? What can be financed? How can we co-create? What would it look like if we planned across borders? What are the solutions that we can do that could be inclusive, impactful, and sustainable? So I thank you very much for your attention and your participation, and look forward to a productive discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Executive Director. As you say, this is a truly global issue. It's a transboundary issue, and it strikes at the very heart of the way in which we as people interact sustainably or not with the planet. So the next item on the agenda is a keynote speech by Her Excellency Sheena Ansari, Vice President of the Islamic Republic of Iran and Head of the Department of Environment. Madam.
In the name of God, Executive Director of the United Nations Environment Program, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. At the outset, I wish to emphasize that sand and dust storms are today among the most serious environmental, health, and development threats in the world. Dust storms are not merely a temporary decrease in visibility or a transient form of air pollution. They are phenomena that through land and vegetation degradation affect the water cycle, human health, food security, infrastructure, and even the social and economic stability of communities. Dust storms do not recognize political borders. Dust clouds can originate in one land and in a short time settle over vast areas in neighboring countries. For this reason, dust storms are inherently transboundary and shared in nature, and their effective management requires the synergy of national, regional, and global capacities, as well as the utilization of the experiences of countries that have long confronted this challenge. Ladies and gentlemen, Iran is one of the countries severely affected by this phenomenon. Estimates show that more than 30 million hectares of land in Iran are affected by dust storms. Iran also has approximately 32 million hectares of deserts, and around 29.6 million hectares are exposed to wind erosion and dust mobilization. The scale of this challenge becomes even clearer when we recognize that more than 25 provinces are either active or potential dust hotspots or are continuously exposed to storms and their harmful impacts on health, agriculture, transportation, and quality of life. Meanwhile, the Islamic Republic of Iran faces unilateral and unjust sanctions in its efforts to combat dust storms. These sanctions and the obstacles they create in accessing financial assistance, technical support, and modern technologies have imposed significant challenges on our country. Nevertheless, Iran has made extensive efforts through national initiatives and voluntary measures and supports all forms of cooperation with regional and international partners in this field. During the past year, at the initiative of SCAP and ESCWA, 3 regional meetings on strengthening cooperation to combat dust storms were held in Doha, Abu Dhabi, and Beirut. The Islamic Republic of Iran actively participated in all these meetings. Additionally, given Iran's emphasis on establishing a permanent agenda on dust storms within UNEP, we strongly advocate for the creation of a permanent structure under UNEP in the form of an office or secretariat dedicated to dust storm issues, along with the establishment of a financial mechanism to support national and regional projects aimed at combating sand and dust storms. Iran also proposes establishing regional dust storm data platforms, defining joint regional projects to combat dust storms, creating a regional platform for knowledge exchange and lessons learned, conducting training workshops for experts in the region, and establishing a permanent regional technical working group to identify challenges and develop solutions. Despite difficult conditions, the Islamic Republic of Iran has implemented extensive programs to manage and control dust sources. Under the 7th National Development Plan, which outlines a 5-year strategy for progress until 2028. Iran has developed a comprehensive national program to combat dust storms for all government agencies. This program defines goals, actions, and performance indicators across legal, institutional, technical, economic, and social dimensions. Monitoring and coordination are entrusted to the National Dust Storm Committee involving 15 ministers and national body. To strengthen monitoring and evidence-based management, Iran has established a wide network of particulate monitoring stations. Today, 300 stations operate across the country, providing continuous, accurate, and reliable data for analysis, trend assessment, and early warning systems. In addition, several practical measures have been implemented in desert and agricultural lands, including forestation and vegetation establishment in about 89,000 hectares of critical lands, protection and grazing management in more than 2.5 million hectares to prevent vegetation degradation and wind erosion, conservation agriculture in 30,000 hectares of farmlands near deserts, runoff management and seeding in 125,000 hectares to control surface water flows, reduce erosions, and strengthen vegetation establishment. These actions have created a valuable body of technical knowledge, management models, and field-tested experience in Iran that can benefit regional and global efforts. However, the challenges we face are not those of a single nation. Climate change, declining precipitation, and water management in source areas, and the expansion of cross-border dust hotspots all contribute to dust events affecting multiple countries simultaneously. Furthermore, in many parts of the world, local knowledge and community participation are not adequately integrated into solutions, while Iran's experience shows that without the active involvement of local communities, no dust control project can achieve long-term sustainability. Ladies and gentlemen, effective actions against dust storm is a test of our collective will in addressing a shared global threat. The Islamic Republic of Iran reaffirms its commitment to strengthening national measures, expanding scientific monitoring, and participation actively in regional and international cooperation. Iran stands ready to share its experience and capacities to contribute to an enhanced global response to this phenomenon. I hope this workshop will serve as a practical step toward creating effective and sustainable mechanisms to combat sand and dust storms worldwide. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. As you say, it's a transboundary issue, which is why this forum, amongst others, is particularly appropriate. The United Nations. Collaboration across borders is essential because particles of dust don't respect borders. They just move where they like. Okay, thank you very much indeed to our two distinguished speakers for opening our event. Thank you. It's going to be a bit of a revolving panel session in what remains of our time. We will have 2 panels, and the first is on United Nations system perspectives, and the second will be on country perspectives and spotlights. So I'd like to begin by inviting the United Nations panel, Letizia Rosano, who is here as co-chair of the United Nations Coalition on Combating Sand and Dust Storms, Paolo Lai, who is from the World Meteorological Organization, who will be talking about the sand and dust storm warning and advisory system that WMO have set up a long time ago now, and Fruzina Strauss, who's head of the Disaster Risk Reduction Unit here at UNEP. So, without further ado, I'll ask Letizia to set the ball rolling for the United Nations system perspective. Letizia.
Thank you very much, Nick. Good afternoon, Your Excellency, Madam Ansari, Vice President. Ladies and gentlemen, as the director of the Asia and Pacific Center for the Development of Disaster Information Management of the Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific, it is an honor to share some reflections with you on behalf of the United Nations Coalition on Combating Sand and Dust Storms. The coalition is co-chaired by the United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Western Asia, ESCWA, and the UN Economic and Social Commission for Asia and Pacific, ESCAP. And we warmly thank you and UNEP for inviting us to speak at this UNEA-mandated event. And allow me also to acknowledge the leadership of the Islamic Republic of Iran, who is also the host of the center that I have the honor to lead UPDIM. The United Nations Coalition on Combating Sand and Dust Storms is an interagency network of 21 institutions covering different areas of expertise, reflecting the multi-sectoral nature of sand and dust storms and its importance for the Sustainable Development Goals and the Pact for the Future, which makes explicit reference to sand and dust storms. The coalition is tasked by the UN Secretary General with preparing the annual report on combating sand and dust storms requested by the General Assembly and is mandated by the UN General Assembly to facilitate the observance of the International Day on Combating Sand and Dust Storms on the 12th of July of each year. This year, in particular, this included supporting the President of the General Assembly convene a high-level meeting under the theme, Working Across Agendas for Resilience and Sustainability. The coalition is also mandated by the General Assembly to support the Secretary General with the planning and organizing of the United Nations Decade on Combating Sand and Dust Storms, which the Executive Director just referred to, which was launched this year and is, just as a reminder, as per its enabling resolution, the decade seeks to accelerate and sustain action towards the mobilization of means of implementation, seeks to scale up international cooperation and collaboration in science, research, and innovation at the local, national, and regional levels, and seeks to foster public, private, and multi-stakeholder partnerships. The conduct of decade activities is supported through voluntary contributions and encourages engagement with the private sector. Esteemed delegates, the UN Environment Programme was instrumental in setting up the coalition in 2018 and is now an active member of its work, especially in the fields of policy and governance, in reducing the impact of sand and dust through a disaster risk reduction lens and supported the identification of their sources. The coalition work is articulated around key areas, and here allow me to also acknowledge the other organizations of the United Nations involved. So we work on adaptation and mitigation under the leadership of the FAO, early warning systems led by our friends at the World Meteorological Organization, and health impacts led by the World Health Organization, and regional collaboration coordinated by ESCWA and ESCAP in their capacity as UN regional commissions. It is notable that enhancing the resilience of countries affected by sand and dust storms, including through regional cooperation, is a recurring theme across international fora. The General Assembly, just last month in November, in its resolution recognized that sand and dust storms as an issue of international concern, the costs of which are measured in economic, social, and environmental terms, negatively affecting the achievement of 11 of the Sustainable Development Goals and their means of implementation. ESCAP and ESCWA foster regional collaboration on sand and dust storms through the coalition by organizing multi-sectoral dialogues among countries in Southwest Asia, as we heard from Her Excellency. In the Asia-Pacific, the ESCAP Commission endorsed a regional plan of action to combat sand and dust storms in the region, tackling transboundary issues of concern, including the impact of dust deposition on glaciers and on specific agricultural crops, as well as supporting countries in the region reporting sand and dust storms damages through the Sendai Framework Monitor. With the launch of the UN Decade and in the face of the current financial challenges, closer coordination and collaboration in the UN system will be needed to optimize our resources and better support our member states. Allow me to also underscore that coordination is critical at the legislative and policy level. We do our part from the UN, and we look to our member states and their leadership to help us in the coordination at the legislative and policy level across the Rio Conventions and the Sendai Framework, for it's only through coordination across global agendas that we can truly advance integrated approaches on land restoration, climate change, impact-based forecasting and early warning systems, disaster risk reduction, health, transport, and tools that can prevent and mitigate impacts on the most vulnerable. It will also facilitate synergy on indicators, monitoring and reporting on targets affected by sand and dust storms. The UN Coalition on Combating Sand and Dust Storms, through its diverse membership and collective expertise, is uniquely positioned to coordinate and facilitate across access to such efforts, ensuring that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. We thus look forward to the continued constructive engagement with all members of the coalition, and look forward to advancing the UN Decade's aim of enhancing international and regional cooperation and supporting efforts to prevent, halt, and mitigate the negative effects of sand and dust storms, especially on the most affected countries. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Letizia. I will now hand straight over to Paolo Lai from WMO. Paolo.
Thank you very much, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to thank, first of all, UNEP for the invitation to this event and acknowledge the role of the Islamic Republic of Iran for organizing the event. I will give you a short overview of what we do at the World Meteorological Organization, together with the colleagues and other UN agencies as part of the UN coalition. The idea of, and if you go to the next slide, the idea of the role of the WMO in this coalition and in these activities related to sand and dust storm is, as mentioned, connected to early warning for all. And what you have in the slide here is the dashboard that you can access at the WMO website, which is basically showing the alert systems that we have. So far, if you go there, you have not much things connected to sand and dust storm, only a visibility warning system that serves basically the aviation. But we know that we need much more than that. We need alert systems that will inform population. And as mentioned, there's only 50% today of the population which have the alert systems in place. What we need to have with sand and dust storm is an information to population that is much more than just aviation and visibility, because we know that SDS events, and that was mentioned by the executive director of UNEP, that yes, an event will affect not only visibility, but many other sectorial economic parts of the society, including health. And what we need to have at some stage, and this is our target, is a system that will inform people about what are the risks for their health, what are the forecasts for the next 3 days, and we know that this is not in place yet. Next slide, please. This next slide is basically what we do at the WMO, and it's I will summarize that with a few keywords. Observations. Without observations, we cannot do any forecast. Forecasting, we need the models that are ready and trusted to inform population. Capacity building, and then early warning. What we do, and it's not only my unit at the WMO which is involved with these activities, it's really a research for action. And this is the title of this presentation, Research for Action, meaning that we still need research. We know that there are a number of issues that need to be developed still by the research communities. The link between sand and dust storm and health, for example, we don't have the right numbers and the right connections yet, but we also need to work with other departments, with infrastructure departments, to develop the framework and the observation system. We need to work with the people competent with regulations and to implement the active services. We also need to work with all members to develop the capacity building. Next slide. What you have here is the vision of our regional centers that are active in doing this forecast for the WMO. And we have a number of activities that are ranging from developing research, capacity building, as mentioned, identification impact assessments, dissemination and awareness, promoting the use of the current tools that we have, the current services that we have, promoting the international research and the international framework for developing those services. This is what we do in the SDS-WAS, this is what we will be doing in the future, and we'd like to acknowledge the strong support of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia in this process. So I will finish with that, my last slide. You can connect with what WMO is doing on sand and dust storm, and we are very pleased to be an active member of the coalition. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Paolo. I just should say that there will be time for a question or two at the end of these 3 United Nations presentations. So if one sprung into your mind, hang on until Frusina Strauss has completed her presentation. She's head of Disaster Risk Reduction Unit here at UNEP, and she will be talking about UNEP's strategic priorities on sand and dust storms. Frusina.
Thank you, Nick. Good afternoon, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Frusina Strauss, and I'm heading up UNEP's disaster risk reduction work, and the sand and dust portfolio fits within our overall DRR work stream. It is actually one of the main areas of work within the unit, where we focus on emerging environmental risks, which include hazards such as sand and dust, wildfires, floods, urban flooding, and other related issues. So our unit, the Disaster Risk Reduction Unit, has recently become the new home, I would say, of sand and dust storms work at UNEP. We are very happy to be the focal points for UNEP within the UN coalition to combat sand and dust storms. And we're also acting as focal points for the resolution. So in today's presentation, I wanted to begin by talking a little bit about what brings us all here today, and what has occurred over the last 2 years since the adoption of this resolution, and how has that shaped the work of UNEP on this issue. So on the first slide, you will see, there we go, okay. So at the previous UNEA 6, Resolution 7 is on combating sand and dust storms, and it essentially has two sets of requests. One set of requests to the Executive Director, to Ms. Inger Anderson, who opened our session today, and one of the components of that request was actually to organize this workshop during UNEA 7 to bring us all together here to share experiences, to identify gaps, and to discuss the key priorities around sand and dust storms. The other set of asks was to member states, and these were a bit more complex and included a variety of different activities around capacity building, sharing of best practices and knowledge, ensuring the involvement of women and girls, and promoting overall cooperation by preparing and implementing programs, promoting research, technical and scientific collaboration, promoting north-south, south-south, and triangular cooperation, and integrated practical interventions. So over the last 2 years, we have been tracking how this resolution has been implemented, both in terms of the work being done by the member states, but also in terms of UNEP meeting our own commitments. And so and of course, maybe it's very important also to mention that we don't see this reporting, today's workshop, the end of the reporting period on this resolution as any kind of end to this work. In fact, what is very, very critical to us is that we see this really as the beginning of even more amplified work on these issues. And what we've been doing over the past 2 years was essentially to prepare the groundwork for that. So how do we move forward? How do we know which direction we could really focus on in terms of the environmental dimensions of this issue? So during a workshop that we held in October in preparation for this workshop today, but also really looking forward at the work that we would like to do together with our partners, together with member states, together with within the context of the coalition, is to identify key priorities specifically for UNEP on the environmental aspects of this issue. So these key priorities include identifying key knowledge and action gaps. This is the meeting on the priorities of the meeting, but we could go directly to the priorities that were identified during the meeting, which are: 1, identifying, mapping, and mitigating sand and dust sources. Implementing solutions to sand and dust requires access to data and information so that we could identify hotspots, assess, and potentially address in accordance with the most up-to-date scientific research. It includes the second priority, preparedness and risk reduction, which is key to having reliable data and information, to providing early warning and assessment, as well as to implementing other strategies to halt and mitigate the negative effects of sand and dust. The third is policy support and promoting cohesion and collaboration. We've already heard that sand and dust is not just a local, but a transboundary issue, which requires capacity building and policy support at national, local, and transboundary levels. And finally, of course, we know that we need resources for implementation, because combating sand and dust storms effectively requires public, private, and multi-stakeholder partnerships that can leverage diverse insights and help identify sources of support. Finally, just to quickly wrap up, we would like to emphasize that, of course, this is not a new area of work for UNEP, as the Executive Director has also already pointed out. Combating sand and dust storms and the related issues are already embedded in much of the work of UNEP. On all 4 of these priorities, we have had and continue to have activities at the local level, at the national level, and also at the transboundary, regional, and global levels. And we aim to continue to collaborate and work together to be able to upscale that work, to be able to replicate trees and cities in others. And you will be hearing about some of that work also in the next panel after this one. So that's just to give a quick overview on where UNEP is on sand and dust storms. It's certainly a topic that we've been committed to a long time, a topic that we're really here to reaffirm our commitment to today, and one that we look forward to continuing to collaborate with you on as our journey moves forward. So thank you very much, and looking forward to the conversation.
Thank you very much, Fruzina. So we have about 5 minutes for any questions there may be for either of these three presenters from the United Nations system. Are there any questions from the audience?
Good afternoon. Thank you, panel. Question for Fruzina. So what are the challenges and the kind of barriers that UNEP's facing in terms of implementation of the resolution?
Could you introduce yourself, sir? Thank you.
Hi, Oliver Phipps, representing ERM and the Nicole Foundation.
Thank you so much for that question. And I see there's also another. How about now? Yeah, I see there's also another one, so maybe we could take a couple and then answer them.
I'll go here and then.
Please tell us who you are and then your question. Thank you.
Yes, thanks very much. I'm Anna Merrifield from the Finnish Ministry for Foreign Affairs, and also really happy actually that the Finnish Meteorological Institute has been able to participate in this quite strongly. My question was about an acronym I don't think you mentioned, any of you, and that's the UNCCD. And I was wondering if you could say something about how you see UNEP's and WMO collaboration and overall the kind of how the UNCCD fits into this picture. Thanks.
Thank you. Who shall we deal with the first question first, and
I think there's one more.
or
I think there's one more.
okay? Yeah, right. You want to build them up?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Batulga, Director of National Agency of Meteorology, Mongolia. I have a question. What financial and technical mechanisms are available for developing countries like Mongolia for identify and modeling and such kind of technical things? Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we have three questions there. One, just to recap, one on the challenges UNEP faces in implementing the resolution from last UNEA. Another one referring to UNCCD and where that organisation, the convention, fits into the UN system dealing with this issue. And then the third one about technical help. So who would like to take which question?
I'll take, yes, thanks. I'll take number one, and thank you for that. I'll start perhaps just by saying that, yes, there have certainly been challenges, but fundamentally, the resolution has been an opportunity for us to really bring visibility to this issue. So that has really helped to anchor the work of UNEP on sand and dust storms in a much more concrete, much more coordinated way. Because sand and dust storms relate to so many different things, to land degradation, desertification, drought, many issues that UNEP is already working on, so air quality and so on. And so it's been a bit piecemeal, but having this resolution has helped us to really be able to approach that in a more coordinated way and empower colleagues to be working, towards this, towards the mandate that has been given to us through the resolution itself. But of course, there are challenges, some of them being as I think the ED had alluded to a bit as well. We're working with very meager resources. We don't really have dedicated funds at UNEP, so we've been really trying to do as much as we can in-house and look for opportunities for resource mobilization where we could potentially find partnerships that could help us identify funding sources to do more programmatic work, because we would like to do more in countries. We would like to do more at the regional level. So for that, we need dedicated resources, including more personnel as well. Of course, this issue being transboundary, again, because of its transboundary nature, there are so many opportunities to leverage it for facilitating dialogue and conversation, but also it makes it more complex because you're dealing, of course, with having to coordinate and challenging relationships, challenging settings, and then also communication. We're really looking for opportunities to communicate UNEP's views on this issue, but
really trying to find good channels to get that communication across and to ensure two-way communication, to also understand better from our member states what they expect from us, what they want from us. So these kinds of events and venues are a good opportunity for us to get that, to receive that information, so that we understand really the needs that we are that we can respond to with our work. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Fruzina. The second question was about the United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification, and I think
Yes.
Letizia is going to deal with that.
Yes, from the coalition perspective, thank you very much to Finnish Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Allow me also to warmly thank the support that we received from the Finnish Meteorological Agency for some of the work that we have done in UPTEM, technical advice and support there. But no, UNCCD is very much a partner of the UN coalition, leads work on policy and governance. We work very closely. I mean, my counterpart, as I mentioned, we are co-chair with ESCWA. I'm here in Nairobi, and my co-chair was in Panama literally day before yesterday at the creek, having a very similar conversation and advocating for very much hand in hand with our UNCCD colleague who are supporting, and that is a segue into the next question that came from Mongolia, the upcoming Mongolia presidency, and really thinking through how best to discuss this issue. And in answer to the question on the financing, if I may also add a thought here, is a little bit what I try to convey with my reflections and the remarks, is that we need to work across agendas. If we start advocating for funding separately from, it's, as we said, it's an issue that cuts across agendas. So depending on the countries and how they're impacted, there can be climate funding, it could be funding from land degradation, it can be environmental, it can be a mitigation issue, because some of the sandstorms, you can't stop them, you just have to deal with them, but some you can definitely reduce, and there is plenty of literature, etc. So the point is really to advocate for synergies and better and optimize the resources that are available, and to work across silos inside the countries. And maybe I can also refer to the speech of Her Excellency in Iran about this, national committee for sand and dust storms, where you do have, in countries that are heavily affected, multiple ministries working together, or this regional initiative that I was referring to in my remarks, bringing together countries from the Gulf and West Asia. We invited ministries from three different ministries, precisely to allow for this cross-cutting nature of the hazard of the problem.
Thank you. Paolo.
Perhaps I can complete. I fully support what Letizia just said, but on the specific aspect of sand and dust storm advisory system at WMO, we have already in place a number of activities to support people in the countries for observations, for anything related to use also of observations and forecasting. We are regularly organizing courses, and we are organizing also information and raising awareness to a number of people involved in these issues in the different countries. So you can connect to the SDS, and you will see that you have opportunities for people working at technical level on the field, and people working with often the Met services to do the forecasting and contribute to these early warning systems.
Thank you very much. So that comes to the end of the UN system perspectives. So thank you very much to this panel. And these presenters will be replaced by three others who have country spotlights and innovations. So please come and join me on the stage. In this order, Juman Al-Qahtani, who's the Executive Director of the Sand and Dust Storms Regional Center in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. Thank you, Juman. Next, Mustafa Aydogdu, who is an advisor to the Ministry of Environment, Urbanization and Climate Change in Turkey. And last but not least, Ekaterina Perfilyeva, who is with the regional UNEP regional sub-office for Central Asia, but will be presenting on behalf of the government of Uzbekistan. So we have three national perspectives coming up, and I'd like to ask Juman to kick off with his presentation from Saudi Arabia.
Thank you, Nick. Mrs. Vice President, Excellency, the Ambassador, ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure today to present to you some of the Saudi Arabia efforts to combat sand and dust storm. So if you go to the second slide, please. We are lucky in Saudi Arabia because we had the Saudi Vision 2030. And actually in this vision, environment is one of the main pillars, which harmonize all the government and the private sector to work together to address these problems. Next, please, the Crown Prince, he's leading the effort in making sure that whatever we promised will be implemented, that we have KPIs and goals, and he launched actually two initiatives. The one is the Middle East Green Initiative. The aim is to plant in the Middle East 50 billion trees and rehabilitate 200 million hectares of destroyed land. 10 billion trees will be in Saudi Arabia, and 40 million hectares will be within Saudi Arabia. And they will increase the royal reserves. Their main goal is to protect land and to increase the vegetation covers to 30% of the Saudi Arabia area. So next, please. Next. This is some of the goals that they aiming to achieve. As I mentioned, by the end of the century, they have 10 billion trees and 40 million hectares of land. If you go to the second, please. So they divided the mission into three main phases. From 2021 to 2030, their aim is to plant more than 2 million trees and to rehabilitate 2.5 hectares of land. And they have this phase under the theme of nature-based solution. The second phase will be after 2030 to 2060. By the end of 2060, we hope to have 4.7 billion. And you see the numbers are put into the almost exact number that we hope to achieve, because they have KPIs to achieve the goals. All the ministries, either government or private sector. So by the end of the century, we will reach the 10 billion and 40 million hectares. Not only that, but Saudi Arabia also helping the region by hosting the Secretariat of the Middle East Green Initiative. And we invite our Middle East people to join us. And the UK, they are working as observer for this initiative. Second, please. Second slide. Next. No, go back, please. Yes. So Saudi Arabia also, as Professor Paulo mentioned, we host the fourth center for SDSWAS and the Node. We have 10 countries from South Asia, and we invited the other to join us, and we are working together in actually establishing some sort of cooperation to overcome this issue. As Paulo mentioned, it has to be a collective effort. You cannot solve the problem in your own land, but you have to work with your neighbors. We need to have cooperation, sort of transfer of knowledge, etc. Next, please. We have actually in Saudi Arabia installed 3 systems in 3 different areas, from the north to the south of Saudi Arabia. They monitor the atmospheric AOD, which is part of NASA network, so anyone can access the data. It is available and it's free data. We provide it for our people to use it either for the modeling or for the calibration of the satellite images. We have also some dust sampling, so we know what is in the dust that we have. And also we have IMAP system, which tell you the spatial distribution of dust in specific locations. Next, please. Currently, we have about 900 stations in Saudi Arabia. Some of them, they monitor the particulates, the PM 2.5 and 10, and of course the visibility, and they use different techniques. We have also utilized or working in developing low-cost sensor that can observe the dust concentration in the atmosphere. But this is still under development. Second, please. As I mentioned, in order to achieve the goals of the Saudi initiative, we have assigned dedicated government bodies, and they have mandate to achieve. So there is the National Center for Vegetation Cover and Combating Desertification. Their mandate is actually to reach the 10 billion trees and the 40 million hectares of rehabilitated land. Of course, all the government agencies, they are working into these goals, and they have mandate, they have to update in every 3 months. Second, please, next slide, please. Saudi Arabia also, in COP16, we launched actually 2 global initiatives. One is the Riyadh Partnership for Droughts. And we have collected $2.15 billion during the conference to help addressing this issue in a global scale. The second initiative is the International Sand and Dust Storm Early Warning Initiative. And this is a global initiative that we want the WMO STS-WAS centers that we have now currently 4, in addition to academia in the world and the pioneer, to work together to help the less developed nation to have at least an early warning of this phenomenon. And of course, to develop some techniques to be used in addressing the issue. Second, please. Second slide, yes. This is some of the study that we did in the center, and it's available in our website. This is the AOD in the atmosphere, and you can see the seasonal concentration throughout the MENA region. You can see here we have 2 seasons, actually, the spring and the summer. And then the one in the middle here is the AOD that we believe is dust, because non-spheric AOD. And you can see also that spring and summer is still the season for this storms or dust concentration. Next, please. Next. We focus now in Saudi Arabia because we think we can do something in Saudi Arabia. And if you look to the left, it shows you the yearly concentration or emission of dust in Saudi Arabia. And you can see there is a decrease in the recent 3 years. But we are hoping that with the Saudi Arabia green initiatives and other program that is implemented in the country, we will be able to at least reduce the substantial reduction in the hotspots that I will show you in the next slides. Next, please. Next. Yes, so this is a study that we are conducting in Saudi Arabia, and that will be published hopefully next year. And we identify the extreme hotspots in Saudi Arabia. Of course, there are other sources, but this is the main sources that we believe we have to focus on them. We have to address this one because you cannot go like Saudi Arabia we have huge desert. You cannot say to the government, go and rehabilitate the whole desert. We have to focus in the hotspots within the sources that I showed you before. And we found out that we have actually this northeast sector of Saudi Arabia and something in the middle. And we are working now. We have a government committee, and we were working to develop a plan to mitigate this hot spots, but it will take time. We know that, but hopefully we will be there. Next, please. Oh, he asked me to finish now. Well, I will. So this is the international assessment and the international initiative working with WMO, and it's under the management of the GAO, which Professor Paulo is heading, and the other centers and the scientists in the world that they will participate with us. Next, please. And Saudi Arabia, they dedicated next $10 million over the next 5 years to support this initiative. And thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's move swiftly on to Professor Mustafa Aydogdu, who will be giving a presentation about Turkey.
Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. His Excellencies from Iran and Turkey. It's a great honor to me to be here to talk about subjects. Well, yes, next slide, please. Due to its geographical condition and climatic characteristics, Turkey is among the countries sensitive to STS and is situated within the dry and semi-dry climate of the zone of the Mediterranean basin. So we also has significant risks on desertification, drought, and from these two ones, generally STS generate. And we know that globally we have problems, climate change, global warming, desertification, deforestation, and others. And these events have multi-effects on the daily life, and also have many sectorial relationship with directly, like the speakers and keynote speakers mentioned before me, from health to transportation, agriculture to energy, welfare to economy, and impact on various aspects of the daily life. So STS is a cross-cutting issue and affecting multi-sector. Yes, next one, please. Turkey addresses STS under 3 pillars, and this is the source management, monitoring, forecasting and assessment, and impact management. In this framework, specialized institutions collaborate across different fields. Source management and monitoring assessment activities are conducted by Ministry of Environment, Urbanization and Climate Change together with Ministry of Agriculture and Forestry, while forecasting the modeling efforts also led by this institution. And Ministry of Transport and Infrastructure manages challenges such as flight cancellation, road closures. At Ministry of Health oversees the monitoring and management of the health impacts, and Ministry of Interior coordinates security, emergency response, and disaster-related needs. Next one, please. STS in Turkey is addressed through the multi-stakeholder and well-coordinated approach. And for this approach, for this purpose, the National STS Dialogue Group, Working Group has been established, bringing together all relevant institutions. And this structure ensures effective cooperation between agencies responsible for source management and those conducting monitoring, forecasting, and assessment, and those responsible for managing and inspects. Thus, the expertise of institutions across various fields is integrated under a single framework and enabling a more comprehensive, stronger national response mechanisms to STS. Next one, please. We developed many strategies and prepared action plans for combating land degradation and managing the dust sources. For effectively implementing these efforts, we are using science-based monitoring systems. In this regard, Turkey not only implements rehabilitation and restoration activities, but also develops comprehensive national monitoring and assessment systems that support these efforts. And this enables us to regular monitoring of desertification, erosion, and soil productivity, such as Turkey desertification model, soil organic carbon model and map, and dynamic wind erosion systems. And this help us for monitoring, and early warning systems also play a crucial role in combating STS. Dust observation stations continues to track dust transport, produce forecasts, and share information with the public. In addition, the air emission management portal is called in Turkey HL, HEY portal, enables national, regional, and local air quality as well. Next slide, please. In the problem statement, it is STS, and STS, in order to take place, you need land and wind. And so land and wind mostly affected by the land use and land cover. And this is an important monitoring systems we call as OASIS. And in these systems, we use artificial intelligence and machine learning technologies to semi-automatically generate and monitor land cover and use data across the Turkey. And OASIS classify land into 5 main and almost 80 subcategories, providing science-based data from the land management. And this also helps for us the LDN studies. Next slide, please. And LDN approach is one of the important aspects in STS, and Turkey is one of the first 14 countries to set the national LDN. And we work with the national and international institutions such as GAF6. We carried out the Upper Sakarya Basin LDN projects. And in 2024, we get another phase and target setting programs, and Turkey is among one of the first 18 countries. And we updated our national LDN targets to make them more measurable, realistic, and aligned with the land use. Next slide one, please. And now we are already started projects identifying the source areas and causality analysis of the STS affecting Turkey. The aim of this project is to identify where STS originate within Turkey and transboundary basins, how they move, and under which conditions they occur. Yes. And the first time in such a comprehensive manner, and we will use satellite data, atmospheric analysis, and modeling for the at least 25 years data, and we will analyze backward and forward dust trajectories and statistically examine the relationship between STS and other things. Ladies and gentlemen, no one and no country can solve this problem alone. It's a transboundary problem. We need to work regionally, internationally, and globally together. Otherwise, we can do nothing. So we already start with ESGA and ESGAP together with the Optim, 10 countries, and we are trying to establish initiatives. And Carol and Leticia was our coordinator, and many of the colleagues from the countries we work together. And we believe that if we act together, we can solve this problem together. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mustafa. Finally, we have Katerina Perfilyeva, who's speaking on behalf of the Uzbek government.
Thank you very much, Nick. Good afternoon, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. I'm speaking today on behalf of the delegation of Uzbekistan. Unfortunately, they couldn't make it to this event. And I'm going to give you a spotlight on how urban air quality and SDS are interconnected in Uzbekistan. Next slide, please. So, Central Asia is a major SDS hotspot. You can guess the land is very arid. We have also climate change. We have dry lakes, and you might know the example of the Aral Sea, which is now actually a desert and is forming a huge source of salt and dust in the region. In fact, there is a whole belt of sand and dust storms reaching all the way from East Asia to West Asia, and Uzbekistan is on the way of this massive SDS. In 2024, the government of Uzbekistan approached UNEP with a request to do an air quality assessment for the city of Termez, which is in the south of Uzbekistan, because they knew that the city was really impacted by sand and dust storms. But the question was to what extent the SDS really affect key air pollutants and whether something can be done to mitigate that impact. Next slide, please. So, city of Termez, you can see a southernmost city in Uzbekistan, located right on the border with Afghanistan. You can see the picture of how urban trees look like, for example, and how much dust there is in the city in general. We partnered with the Finnish Meteorological Institute for an air quality assessment. We assessed the concentrations of key air pollutants in the city. There is one automatic air quality monitoring station in the city which has been operating since 2024, so we used automated data from that one. We also used, of course, meteorological data, and we used satellite data and such parameters as AOD and AAI to compare them with in-situ data. Next slide, please. So on the left, you can see a graph which actually depicts the concentrations of PM10, so the key parameter of dust. And down below, you can see the dotted lines, which are actually the WHO guidelines and the national guidelines. And you can see that the air in the city of Termez is constantly bad. So it is really affecting air quality, and we are able to tell by comparing the wind profile of the city and the concentrations of dust that most of it and most of the concentrations of PM10 and larger PM particles are caused by sand and dust storms. You can see also on the upper right corner to what extent the PM10 annual average concentrations are bigger than the health-based guideline. So we were able to also find that during the SDS events, particularly at metro levels in Termez can double or even triple. So the baseline is constantly high because the geographic location of Termez is so that it's located in a very arid area. There's a lot of dust outside the city. There is also regional winds who influence the situation, of course, in Afghanistan, in Kazakhstan, in Iran, and other countries. So it's a really major way of sand and dust storm going all the way through, and citizens are really affected. And I can tell I was in Termez in May this year, and you can start feeling the dust particles in your teeth. Next slide, please. So in the study of air quality in Termez, it was important to understand can we actually do something about SDS, because we know they have been there and they will be there. That's the geographic specifics of the location. So to what extent can we actually mitigate sand and dust storms? And the government of Uzbekistan is really interested in using nature-based solutions. So one of the key policy questions and one of the things where Uzbekistan needs support from UNEP and other member states is what kind of nature-based solutions we can use that are location-specific and that can be effective there in the city. And what is it that we cannot actually change, so that we need to adapt, so we need to elaborate communication to the population, and we need to somehow reduce exposure of people to the harmful effects of dust in the air. Uzbekistan, since 2024, has a national strategy on sand and dust storms, and that, for instance, includes expansion of monitoring networks. It also includes the expansion of nature-based solutions and vegetation in dry areas. And there is also a regional strategy on SDS management in Central Asia that was prepared under the leadership of UNCCD. And next slide, please. So to summarize, based on the study that we did in Termes and as a case for connecting air quality and SDS, what is it that Uzbekistan would be interested in getting support from UNEP and also other member states? So high-resolution mapping and source attribution, so understanding the local SDS hotspots in the area. Understanding realistic mitigation potential, which dust sources can actually be stabilized and by how much and what investment is needed. Health impact assessments, so studying at the level of cities, for example, what health impacts and also infrastructure impacts SDS may have. Uzbekistan would also be interested in support on satellite-based monitoring and forecasting skills, so using satellite data to observe and also to predict dust storms and develop early warning models. Regional cooperation, again, is important. I think every speaker already emphasized that. So we need, at the level of Central Asia, at bilateral also cooperation between Uzbekistan and other countries, we need to know what can be done jointly. And evidence-based NBS design. So what kind of NBS solutions we can use that could be effective against sand and dust storms. And localized adaptation measures. So again, how to reduce exposure of citizens to sand and dust storms. So these are the areas that Uzbekistan would be interested in, and we would appreciate a conversation on that in the future. And let me also announced that we received a positive indication from a donor on potentially supporting further the city of Termes in implementing some of the recommendations coming from the air quality report. So we're looking forward to working together as UNEP and partners in the region with the government of Uzbekistan in mitigating the impacts of SDS in Termes and southern Uzbekistan. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Katerina. That rounds off our second panel for this afternoon. And I think we've had a nice broad indication of the sorts of projects involved in sand and dust storms, both at the whole Middle East level for greening the Middle East, with national level in Saudi Arabia and Turkey, and that final example from a particularly affected city in Uzbekistan. So, we have 7 minutes before we have to vacate the room. There is therefore time for a couple of questions, should there be any from the audience to this panel. Yes, there's a gentleman right at the back there. Please tell us your name and where you're from, sir, and your question.
Evening, I'm Henry Minor. From WAFLAC, an organization, or rather an NGO here in Kenya. And I've raised some concerns, or rather, okay, here are my questions. I have like 2 of them. Okay, one is for the gentleman there who was working in Saudi Arabia. How long does it take, or rather, how long do you think it will take for you to rehabilitate a land by creation of the green carpet? And secondly, setting up the windmills, after you answer the first question, it's a follow-up question. Setting up the windmills and the solar panels, because we all know where the SDS happen, it's because of the pressure differences. That's where there's high wind, or rather there's so much erosion, or rather wind pollution. So with that, there could be an adaptation method of solar panels maybe, and the windmills, etc., that can be used to tap the energy, of which can be used on the overall power grid system, thus creating a creation of some financial aid that can come through from the budget cutting through the power grid system, where some amount can be saved from the overall, since creation of free energy, or rather reusable energy, is almost freely, or rather cost effective. Thus, that method can be used to combat the financial budget that is used to combat the SDS that is happening. And also, lastly, do you intend on finishing, or rather combating the SDS totally? Because they can be manipulated in creation of fertile lands. You know, with wind erosion, as you all know how it works, it's possible for dust precipitation to happen, so that you can be able to trap the fine dust that can be used into farming. Is it possible? Can you work with that?
Thank you very much. We had sort of three questions in one there. The first one, I think, is for you, Jaman, a Saudi question. How long will the rehabilitation take?
Thank you very much. As I mentioned in my presentation, there is a plan, of course, for the tree plantation and also for the land restoration. So I have three phases here. One will end in 2030, the other one in 2060, and the other one by the end of the century. And they have numbers that I can share with you later on. I'm not sure about the other questions. If it's
there was another question about solar panels, which I think it may be in your domain, Juman, or Mustafa might have something to say. I mean, it is one of the big ironies of desert environments is that there's lots of lovely sunshine and it's free energy, but dust is a serious issue. Does anyone want to say anything about solar power and sand and dust storms?
Well, we know that STS is a multi-sectorial effect on daily life. Start from health to transportation, from energy to the other sides of the life. So, and we know that according to the scientific papers, STS can reduce almost 20 to 30% of the energy yield, especially when you are using the solar ones. So, and also we know that from the scientific researches, during the STS days, they apply to the hospital related with the breath and increase to 20 to 40%. So this is a big problem, and problems arise from many factors. So no one and any country can solve this problem together. We need common action. We have to work together, and we need to create our knowledge on a shared basis, to learn from each other, to teach to each other. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mustafa. I think your third question was about totally combating sand and dust storms. I don't think that's feasible. I don't think it's desirable, because there are some very positive aspects of sand and dust storms concerning the movement of nutrients in particular. Okay, we've got 2 minutes, 2 questions. Yes, that gentleman, and then this gentleman in front. But please keep them brief.
Yeah, thank you very much. My name is Odinga Isaiah Abur. I'm coming from Kenya. I stand for the indigenous people, working with the Jokinda Citizen Voice and Action. I only have one question on justice and inclusion for the indigenous people and local communities. The question is, how will you ensure that meaningful participation called for in a resolution on translate into direct access to finance and decision-making seat for indigenous people and local community in national environment projects?
Thank you very much. Important issue. Who would like to say something on the participation of indigenous communities, the importance of environmental justice? Anyone?
Well, this is the very important aspects, because without involving the indigenous and local people to the solution parts, you cannot be able to succeed, even though you will get a marginal success, but it will never be sustainable. So in our cases, we are in Turkey, we are one of the affecting countries, but we are not, thanks to God for time being at least, we are not the source of the STS in Turkey. So we generally get the experience of the local people and indigenous people for the decision-making process, and give the right and give the voice to them, and they will reflect their consideration to our national plans. And most of the time we are making many of the field meetings together with the local people and get their attention or consideration or their solution. And believe me, most of the time their solution is much more effective than what we got from on a scientific basis. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we do have time for, yes, sir, your final question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Majid from Ministry of Petroleum, Iran. I have two questions from Professor Qahtani. If you can help me, please. How long historical data have been analyzed for defining main dust centers in Saudi Arabia? I mean, the historical data is for 1 year, 2 years, or how many years have been analyzed? And second question is that, considering that the dust centers are not constant forever, what will happen if you discover new dust centers or the dust centers be extended in future? And unfortunately, the third question is that the data you will collect now is going to be shared with WMO, I mean, dust prediction system, which was defined in the previous panel. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Juman, your mission is to answer those three questions really quickly, please.
Yes, but the first question was about the how many
historical data. How far back?
Yeah, actually, we have over 75 years of historical data. But of course, not all the kingdom, because as you know, it started with the airports, but of course the network expanded later. The second question?
Was about the potential of new sand and dust storm sources, is that correct? What do you do about new sources?
What do you mean by new sources?
New sources of desert dust.
Actually, we had the legislation now that we hope that it will mitigate the existing sources, but not create new ones. Before, even in the vegetative dust, in the industrial dust, we have very now legislation. We have the environmental police, so they can go and punish anybody who is creating industrial dust. So we hope there will be no more additional sources, but we are hoping to have less sources in the future.
And what was your third point? Sorry.
Actually, yes, in the center, we have 10 days forecast, which is available to everyone. And we have also our Airborne data, which is part of NASA network, and it's also available for everyone. And if anybody wants data, we will be happy to share with them.
Thank you very much. All that remains is for me to wrap up this session, Airborne Risks, Grounded Responses, workshop on sand and dust storms, part of UNEA. Great vote of thanks to distinguished speakers, to the two sets of panelists for their extremely interesting presentations, and to the audience for their intelligent questions. So thank you very much, everybody, and good day.
Should be at the center.
Thank you very much.
front. You're in the front. No, please.
No problem. We are good. We are just here.
Okay, I think we need.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.